Jimmy Garoppolo's not a terrible quarterback. I would say he's above average, but I don't think he's as great as he gets put out to be. A very great defense can make a good quarterback look that much better, and that was the case of the 49ers. They went 13-3 last year. Is the team going to win 13 games again? Absolutely not. Are they going to be good? Probably. Russell Wilson went from a top 5 quarterback, in my eyes, to a top 3 quarterback. I would put Russell Wilson and the Seahawks up against almost any team next year, and one of these years they are bound to win this damn Super Bowl. They can only keep getting better. The LA Rams, we have people saying they're going to be 5-11, 3-13, 13-3. Jared Goff's okay, but how great is this Rams team? Nobody really knows. And the Arizona Cardinals are the team that you have to watch out for in this division. They probably won't make the playoffs, but they have Kyler Murray, and they have a lot of improvements around him. Kyler Murray has a lot of potential. This is your NFC West complete preview and predictions. The Seattle Seahawks went 11-5 last year. And despite 11, nearly 12 wins, the team was a visiting team in the first round of the wild card. How did that happen? That happened because the NFC East is complete garbage. And it resulted in 2 teams last year between the Eagles and Cowboys. It looked like they were trying to not win the division. The Cowboys were a disaster come down the second half of the season. The Eagles snagged the division, obviously being a division winner. They were home, and the Seahawks were a wild card team. The NFC West is competitive, but the only thing with the NFC West is that it's competitive between 2 teams. Outside of the 49ers and Seahawks, there's really not much competition in this division. The LA Rams, I don't think, are going to be the team that they were for a brief stint of time. I feel like their offense is not exactly what it was. The team has questions about what they feel about Jared Goff. I do think that Jared Goff is a decent quarterback, but I don't think that he's maybe not the franchise answer. Again, it comes around certain pieces they have to build around him. But the Rams, to me, are just one of those teams that it's just a giant question mark. You can ask people that are Rams fanatics. You got some that say they're 5-11 coming this season, some that say 13-3, which will not happen, and some that say that they will be the bottom feeders of the NFL. The Arizona Cardinals are really the team to watch in this division. Kyler Murray, rookie season, had a great year, wasn't perfect. He's surrounded with a little bit more weapons now. The one and only Deandre Hopkins will be surrounding him. The team also has built their defense, which was never that well. Some things the Cardinals have worked on, and Kenyan Drake, who came over in the second half of the season last year for the Cardinals, was great in that second half with the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals also have a good coach. We talk about that. I think that they're a team that could be pretty decent this year. Do they make the playoffs? I don't think that they're at that stage yet with the Cardinals. They're definitely heading in the right direction, and I think that Kyler Murray is going to be a stud come years to come. As far as the 49ers go, this was the team that won the division, 13-3. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo is not a bad quarterback. Never said that. But I think this was one of those cases where Jimmy Garoppolo got the job done, but the defense really made this team shine. I think if you take away this 49ers defense, this 49ers team is probably 10-6, 9-7, and they definitely don't win this division. Going into this season, I think the Seahawks should be the favorite. Again, there's a lot of questions or certain things that the Seahawks defense is never what it was. That Legion of Boom defense they had about 5 years back was something special, and I don't think that'll ever be replicated in Seattle. But as far as that, we're going to talk about the Seahawks first. Now, obviously, Russell Wilson speaks for himself. He won a Super Bowl in one of his first few years in the NFL. They absolutely annihilated the Denver Broncos. I believe that was at MetLife Stadium in 2014. That defense was built different. Now, this team's defense is still solid, but it's not nowhere near what it would be. And obviously we know that. But regardless, Russell Wilson last year, always thought Russell Wilson was a great quarterback. But this last year, Russell Wilson put on the Rockets, and I think that if Lamar Jackson didn't do what he did, Russell Wilson would have been the MVP in my eyes. Now, again, there's other guys you could put into that. You could put Michael Thomas. You could put Christian McCaffrey. But in all honesty, if Lamar Jackson didn't shine the way that he did, I think Russell Wilson was the MVP for 2020. Had a monstrous year. He put up some of the best numbers of his career. And unfortunately, the Seahawks team didn't do exactly what it would have liked. They did get the job done against the Eagles in the first round, and then I believe they lost to Green Bay in the divisional round. And then Green Bay obviously lost to San Francisco in the championship, and then San Francisco lost in the Super Bowl. Russell Wilson should have another great year. He's a great scrambling quarterback. He's just a great quarterback, and I think that he's one of those guys that, to me, when you put him, a lot of people talk about the top 10. He's easily top 10. He's top 5. Some people, and I'm one of those people, that I honestly can sit here and tell you that I think Russell Wilson is the top 3 quarterback in the NFL. I know a lot of people that still have the faith in Tom Brady. A lot of people still have the desire with Drew Brees. Mahomes right now is number 1 for me, just based on the potential and the way that he's going. But for me personally, I put Russell Wilson right behind him. That's how much confidence I have in Russell Wilson. And their running backs, again, Chris Carson was coming off of a great year. It ended prematurely with an injury. Rashad Penny is coming back as the backup. The team also drafted DJ Dallas. I did put Marshawn Lynch on here, but I didn't realize that Marshawn Lynch, unless it was made public quietly, is a free agent. So he's just not on. I guess he just came to Seattle for that playoff run where he pretty much didn't do anything. Again, Marshawn Lynch was a great running back at one point, but at this point in his career, I don't see anything coming out of Marshawn Lynch. So I don't know exactly what the plan would be there. Chris Carson is clearly the lead running back here. The injury was a bit of a damper on Seattle last year, but I think that if Chris Carson stays right, he's one of the better running backs in the NFL. Receiving core is what really got special. Tyler Lockett has emerged as one of the best receivers in the league. They also have DK Metcalf, who's young, but he's also great. David Moore, Urusa, and Swain will compete for a spot. The team signed Greg Olsen to be the tight end. Greg Olsen is a great tight end, but he has to stay on the field. I feel like he's had some injury problems. They also have Disley as well, who could be their tight end. But as far as this receiving core goes, Russell Wilson, good receiving core, good running backs. This offense has all the tools it can to put up points. The offensive line, the team signed Shell. They drafted Lewis. Finney is the center. Left tackle is Brown. It was solid, but aging. The offensive line does need to get a little bit better. One of the things is that Russell Wilson, he gets sacked a lot, but he also is very mobile, and he's one of the best mobile quarterbacks in the league. The defensive line, the team needs more from Reed. Ford is a good run stopper. Mayowa, Irving, and the team also drafted 2 rookies to get that defensive line back in shape. Jadeveon Clowney is clearly not on the Seahawks anymore. Linebackers, this is a good team. The team drafted Brooks. KJ Wright is very good, solid. Wagner is probably the best middle linebacker in the league, and he's been for quite a while. If you're one of those people that play Madden and you're playing against the Seattle defense, I would highly advise you don't throw quick slants down the middle. I do that to my friend, and it does not end well for me. I've been picked off about 3-4 times with Bobby Wagner. So fast and so solid. The linebackers, Barton as well. Secondary, Diggs is solid. Quandre Diggs, I believe, but he got hurt. They have Blair. Griffin is great. Dunbar will compete with Flowers. So the secondary is pretty solid for the Seattle team. Again, this Seattle's defense is not going to be anything like it was. I think that's where some of the questions are with Seattle right now. It's not the offense, it's actually the defense. The defensive line, they need a little bit more from. The linebackers, it seems like it's pretty decent, and the secondary is pretty decent. But the Seattle pass rush needs to get back to what it was a little bit. Russell Wilson, phenomenal at what he does. Running backs, Carson is great. The receiving core is one of the best categories on the team. The offensive line needs to improve a little bit as well. But I still think I have enough faith into the Seattle team that they can win the team that really broke out last year, and that's the San Francisco 49ers. Now, we didn't really see it coming. I didn't see it coming. You didn't see it coming. This team's defense was literally gold last year, and it took them all the way to the Super Bowl. And had Patrick Mahomes not been in the right place at the right time, I think the 49ers probably would have won the Super Bowl. But me being a Titans fan, I think I'd have something to say about that. Quarterbacks, Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo is not a bad quarterback, but I don't put him in a top 5. Some people put him in a top 10. He throws a lot of interceptions, and it's costly. But the team's defense is so good that despite throwing those interceptions, if this 49ers team did not have a great defense, I think they'd be in a lot of trouble. I don't think the team is bad. They're very fast when they do score, and they come out of nowhere. We saw that clearly in the NFC Championship game last year, and again, Minnesota never stood a chance in the divisional round. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo's bad. I think that he's one of those quarterbacks that comes out of New England that is breeded to have greatness. Personally, Jacoby Brissett came out of New England as well. I don't know what his deal is this year. He's been one of the quarterbacks I've been questioning in the offseason. Thought he should have went to New England. Obviously, New England has Cam Newton, who is probably going to have a monstrous season on a redemption path. And I would not be surprised to see Cam Newton get comeback player of the year. But despite all that, Jimmy G could have been the guy. What's funny is that if New England, Jimmy G didn't take the offer to sign with San Francisco, Jimmy G would still be the backup in New England, and I don't think New England would have had to worry about getting a quarterback. He has potential. He's just got to watch throwing the interceptions. He likes to throw interceptions, and that's part of the problem with Jimmy G. But I don't have any doubts about his skills, quarterback, but it's just the interceptions that are a killer. Running backs, Mostert was a beast last year. I believe he rushed for 237 yards in the championship game. They have Coleman and McKinnon. This team's running back, the depth of running backs on the San Francisco 49ers is so deep. They can literally have 45,000 running backs, so that should never be a problem as well. The receivers, the team drafted Ayuk. They have Sanders and Samuel, and Kittle is being regarded as the best tight end in the league. I still believe it's Travis Kelce, but the team's receiving core shouldn't have a problem. The running backs should be decently solid. Jimmy Garoppolo, believe it or not, is the question on this offense. Offensive line, the team traded for Williams, McGlinchey as right tackle. They have Richburg, Tomlinson, and they need to know who their right guard is going to be. The offensive line is not the worst in the world, but it definitely could have some improvement. We talk about the defensive line. This is where it gets exciting. We're going to talk about the one of the probably the best defense in the NFL when you look at it from a grand standpoint. D Ford is great. We know what he brings. Nick Bosa has become one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. Armstead as well. Blair 3 is there, and Hyder. The team also drafted Javon Kinlaw, who is going to hopefully be one of their better pass rushers on the defensive line. Their linebackers, Fred Warner, great at what he does. Greenlaw was a replacement also at some point in the linebacking core last year. Sorry I didn't put too many notes here on the linebacking core. Now, as far as the secondary goes, it's the same unit pretty much. Not too much changes with the San Francisco secondary. They re-signed Ward. They have Tart, SS as well. Sherman was solid. Mosley and Ward also at safety. Richard Sherman was the best corner in the league when he was on Seattle. He had a tough adjustment phase to San Francisco at first. I still believe in what Sherman can do, despite what happened in the Super Bowl. I think that you put any secondary against that Kansas City offense, and I don't think it would have gone too well for anybody. So if San Francisco's defense couldn't have stopped them, I don't think anybody could. But I do expect the 49ers to have a good year, but I'm not sure that they're going to go 13-3 again. I think that, you know what's honest? This LA Rams team does have a lot of star power, but I think that it's not what it once was. And I think a lot of that has to do with the run game, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But first thing we're going to talk about is Jared Goff. A lot of people are inconsistent about what they feel about Jared Goff. And you know what I'm going to do right now? I normally don't do this, but I'm going to look up Jared Goff's stats last year because I think that I did a poor job of actually doing that prior to the video, as I needed to look more on LA's stats going into this season. Because I want to see that first. But before we get to Goff, we're going to talk about the run game. Now, Henderson is a second-year rookie. The team drafted Cam Akers as well, and they have Brown. So the run game is almost up for grabs. Obviously, Todd Gurley is no longer on the LA Rams. Todd Gurley was, again, regarded as the best running back in the league. Then he started to have some injuries, and he started to have some recurring knee arthritis, and that was really what the downfall was for Todd Gurley. But also, we're going to skip over here. We're going to talk about the offensive line. The run protection was not that good last year for the LA Rams offensive line, and I think that that's what part of the problem was with the LA Rams, is that even though Todd Gurley was battling the injuries, I thought that personally, you have to say that to an extent too. Again, Todd Gurley was injured, but I think Todd Gurley's trip to Atlanta is going to be great because I think that he fits that team's play style perfectly. So that is what that is where I'm going with that. Just give me a minute. We're looking at the Jared Goff stats here. I should have been more responsible and looked at that prior to the video. So the 2019 stats for Jared Goff were let's see here now. He had 4,600 yards. He's got one of the best receiving cores, 22 touchdowns. He threw a lot of interceptions. That is not good. He got sacked 22 times, which isn't terrible, but it's not that great. The interceptions stick out a lot, and I think that despite all the yards, I think that the team would have liked to have had him throwing a little bit more touchdowns last year. Interceptions is definitely what sticks out. 4,600 yards is great, but it's the interceptions is what is a killer. He had 40 yards rushing last year. It's fun when you look up the rushing stats of quarterbacks that aren't known to run. It's the funniest thing in the world. But yeah, that's where I am with that. So we talk about the defensive line. obviously, without hesitation, Aaron Donald didn't have the year he had last year didn't have the year last year that he had prior to the year before that. But he's regarded as the best defensive player in football. And if you look at Aaron Donald, he had 20.5 sacks 2 years ago, and he had 12.5 last year. Teams were obviously double-teaming him, and they did the same thing with Khalil Mack, which has resulted in his sacks being cut almost in half. Brockers is great, and they have Robinson. This team's defensive line is one of the stronger suits. The linebackers, though, the team lost a lot at linebackers. They signed Leonard Floyd. They drafted Terrell Lewis. They have Kaiser and Ibukum as well. Their secondary consists of Jalen Ramsey, who came onto the team last year. He came onto the team about halfway through the season from Jacksonville. Obviously, Jalen Ramsey voiced his frustration in Jacksonville. The Jacksonville team is going to be a complete disaster this year. They have Hill, Rapp, and Johnson, 3 at safety. I don't worry too much about the secondary. The linebackers is where it kind of is a question. Aaron Donald's going to do what he has to do. We're gonna cut back up here. The receivers. Now the team drafted Van Jefferson. They have 2 guys that are great. Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods will be great at receivers. The third spot is up for grabs between Wendell George and Jefferson, and they like Tyler Higbee, who is a pretty good tight end for the LA Rams. Now personally, again, we just don't know. I feel like the Rams are the biggest question mark going into the season, so I don't think that it would be fair to sit here and say this team's going to be terrible, because the team has star power. You know, Cooper Kupp and Woods are good receivers. The tight end is good. The run game is the biggest question to me, because I think that somebody like Todd Gurley, when you're going into a year, again, I understand Henderson's his second-year rookie. That's another. Kyler Murray in his rookie season had 3,700 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, which isn't the greatest thing in the world. But he was sacked 48 times, so we're going to talk about the sack thing. Kyler Murray loves to run like he's a little ninja. I like Kyler Murray a lot. I think you're putting more weapons around him, building your offensive line. I think that this Arizona Cardinals team is definitely headed in the right direction. And if there's one guy that I like more than the next, it's Kyler Murray. Maybe it's because I love the quarterbacks that run, but they don't need to run. Kind of like Russell Wilson is one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch, because he's just so fluent at what he does. But I feel like, and this is no disrespect, but somebody like Lamar Jackson relies on his run a little bit too much to get him out of situations. Tyler Murray is going to be the quarterback. Brett Hundley and Andy Lee are backups. Shouldn't even hit the field. As long as Kyler Murray is breathing, he should be the starting quarterback in Arizona. I love Kyler Murray, and I think that he's got a very bright future in the NFL, and the Cardinals fans should be all aboard him. We talk about running backs. Edmonds, the team also made a draft in the 7th round for a running back, but the lead running back should probably be Kenyan Drake going into this NFL season. The Cardinals picked him up halfway through the year last year, and he showed a lot of brilliance. Prior to that, I believe the team had David Johnson, which was part of the trade for DeAndre Hopkins, which we'll talk about in a minute as well. But I think Kenyan Drake definitely has some potential to make some noise on this Cardinals team, and we're going to see what happens as well. They still have Chase Edmonds. Also, the receivers. Now, before we even get into anything, the Arizona Cardinals acquired DeAndre Hopkins last year. DeAndre Hopkins is a top 3 receiver in the NFL, and his presence alone makes this receiving core must-see. You have the talent of a young Kyler Murray. You have one of the best receivers in the league in DeAndre Hopkins. You have Larry Fitzgerald, who is a gift that never stops giving. The guy is still playing football. Coming back, Christian Kirk was injury-plagued, but he also showed potential. The team also has Arnold at tight end. This offense for the Arizona Cardinals could be a fantasy match made in heaven. But again, could be a fantasy match made in heaven. The offensive line, most starters returning, can be solid, and that's what we're going to need. The offensive line needs to improve on this Arizona Cardinals team. Defensive line, they have Peters. They signed Phillips. Allen is in his 2nd season. They also drafted 2 players on the defensive line. Linebackers, Chandler Jones is one of the best, if not the best, pass rusher in the league. Hicks is solid as well. They signed Campo, and they drafted Simmons. Now, the first pick for the Cardinals last year in the draft was Isaiah Simmons. Now, Isaiah Simmons is primarily, for what we're told, is going to be playing linebacker, but he also, or he can be he's going to be playing linebacker, but he also can be thrown into the secondary. Speaking of the secondary, Patrick Peterson is coming off of a lackluster year. I believe he was suspended 5-6 games for PED usage, and he didn't have the greatest year when he came back. Alford was off of injury, Murphy Jr., Baker and Thompson at safety, and they might also plug Isaiah Simmons in at safety as well. some defensive questions for sure for this Arizona Cardinals team. The linebacking core looks like it could be pretty good. The defensive line is young. And the secondary is where I have a lot of questions. Patrick Peterson, obviously one of the best corners in the league. Didn't have the greatest year. Alford is coming off of injury. They have Murphy Jr., Buda Baker is pretty good. Thompson. So safety isn't that bad. And they might also plug Isaiah Simmons there as well. Watch out for this Cardinals team, man. Ladies and gentlemen, that will conclude your NFC West preview. And last but not least, before the season tips, we have one more to go, and that is the biggest division change, and that is the NFC South. I appreciate everybody for watching. As always, keep staying safe.